Before we get into Eloquent, what we're going to want to do next is manage how we create our database, create our tables, add fields, remove fields, update, so on and so forth. So far, we've just been going into SQL Pro and just creating a to-do list table. We've created our database. We've added some information. Doing all of this manually is fine for right now. But as you move forward into the project, you're going to want to have a level of version control so that other people can work on the project with you, so that you can roll things back or add new features in and have a way to go backwards and forwards easily without having to manually update things. A name here and there, an ID here and there, one or two fields is nothing, but when you start changing large things in an application, the versioning control, in our case, we're going to call them migrations, is extremely important. So Laravel has a great migration system built into it, and it also has a good schema builder to help us build out what we need, how we're going to use creations and destroys, so on, in order to help us deal with this exact issue. So let's start by getting rid of everything we've done so far. So I'm just going to delete this table completely. Now, there's lots of documentation here on creating migrations under laravel.com docs migrations. But I'm going to do it right here in Terminal. So we're going to jump right over, and we are still inside of our Vagrant box. And we're going to create a migration with Artisan. So Artisan command for migrate is as follows. PHP artisan migrate, and then we're going to make a migration. Then the next thing we're going to have there is the name of the migration. So you want to be very verbose here, use underscores instead of spaces the entire time, and we are going to create a to-do lists table. And then we're going to pass an option to create, and then the name of our table, which is going to be to-do underscore lists. So let's run that. And that says it has generated a migration for us, which is the timestamp with the date and time now, and then the name create to-do lists table. So let's go ahead and switch back over to our editor as soon as this completes, and we'll take a look at the migration that's been created for us. So here under App and under Database, you're going to see Migrations, and here you'll see our migration. Now, there are namespaced some classes here, so Blueprint and Migration. You'll see the class is Create To-Do List Tables, extending migration, and we have two methods. One of the methods is up, and the other method is down. So when we run the migration going forward or creating it, it's going to create, as you can see here, schema create, to-do list table, using Blueprint passing through the table, and then we're going to have increments ID, which is automatic, and timestamps, which is our created on and updated at columns. So we're going to need a little more here. So we're going to want to add in our own column. So in order to add a column, we can add it anywhere we want here. I'm just going to add it right in the middle. We're going to use the table variable, which is actually a class, a Blueprint class object. And then we're going to say string. And then that string is going to be called name. And to the end. Now, where do we find this information? How do we know all of the different column types we have? We'll just go over to our documentation, and then we're going to look for our column types. So that's going to be inside of the schema builder, and then adding columns. Okay, and here are our column types. So you see table, there it is, passing through string email. So for us, we're looking at string email. It is a varchar equivalent column, and we can also specify a length. There is text equivalent, timestamps, so on and so forth. A lot of things that are important. One of the things that's important is adding an index. So we ran into an issue a moment ago where we wanted to add something to make it unique. So here, an index that we can add to the table is unique for email or so on and so forth. Here, you just chain it onto the end by using the object operator and the method unique. So I'm going to actually go into our text. And then now, that means that the name for each of the lists will be forced to be unique through the database. Now, this does not give us front-end validation. This will actually throw an exception, but this is one of the ways that we can make sure that no duplicate entries are made into the database. Our next method here is the down. And that just means if we roll back a migration, we go backwards in our version control, what are we going to do? Well, we're just creating a new table and we're adding all these columns. Well, we're not going to need that table at all or any of the columns if we roll back. So we're just going to drop the to-do list table, and that's exactly what it's doing. So once we have what we need here, we're just going to go ahead and run the migration. So we need to go back to our terminal to run the migration. All right, so PHP artisan migrate. Okay, so migration table successfully created. Let's go back over to our SQL Pro installation and see if we see our table. Let's hit refresh. So now we have our migrations table, which shows us our versions, and then a to-do list, which is great. So here we have ID, we have name, we have created and updated at. If we go to structure, we can see that we actually have a key for to-do list name unique, and that will give us an index to make sure that it has to be unique. Great. So in order to see all the commands that Artisan has for us revolving around migrate, we can just type in PHP artisan and see what commands are available. Now you see under migration, we have migrate install, make, publish, refresh, reset, or roll back. So what we want to do in this particular case is roll back the last database migration. So we will clear our screen and then run PHP artisan migrate and then roll back. Okay, so now we've successfully rolled it back. We can verify this by going here and hitting refresh. Now you see that we have a migration, but we don't have our table, which is good. That's exactly what we wanted. So now we'd be able to go in and run what we need to do, make our changes. For instance, we could go to our migrations and add in something new here. In this case, description. That would actually want to be text, not a string. That way it has more characters. All right, now I actually don't want to run this migration, but I want to see if it's valid, if it would succeed. So let's go back over to our terminal and we'll do a PHP artisan help migrate. And here you're going to see there's an option for -- pretend. So we're just going to look at the SQL query, see what would happen, but we're not actually running the migration. So we'll do PHP artisan migrate -- pretend. Okay, so if you look at the commands here, actually let's clear this and look at it and again. All right, so we see create table, to-do list, that's what we want. We are creating a couple of columns here, and if you look, one of our columns there is going to be text description not null. That is our change to the migration, but it's showing no errors, it's showing everything we need. So we could actually run the migration right now if we wanted to without the pretend. I'm going to switch back over and remove that line because I don't want it in there. We don't need a description. And then I could do another pretend and see that it's not doing description. Remove the pretend and then run the migration. Now if we head back over, hit refresh, now you can see we actually have our to-do lists and it is here with our timestamps and everything.